Steelers have made a huge move as things just took a wild turn in Pittsburgh. My name is Peyton Kleppy, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers reports and analysis regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. As the Steelers have re-signed their general manager to a multi-year deal, they look to continue to get better this offseason. Before we get into the latest news, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, just click that subscribe button down below. Only 13.1% of our current viewers are actually currently subscribed. So if you do click that subscribe button, we will get you the latest Pittsburgh Steelers reports and news. But like I said before, the Steelers have re-signed their general manager, Omar Khan, to a multi-year deal. Omar Khan has been our general manager for a few years now after taking over after Kevin Colbert did step down. And, most of his moves have been pretty okay. There's definitely been a lot of good moves, but definitely a few bonehead moves in there. But I think overall, Omar Khan has done pretty well as a young GM in today's NFL. He did bring in a ton of new talent into our team this draft. And just looking back, this guy's been able to make some pretty good trades. We look back to the Chase Claypool trade, traded him for a second-round pick. Picked up Joey Porter Jr. with that pick. We get Justin Fields and Russell Wilson for a sixth-round pick and veteran minimum last year. There was a ton of different moves that Omar Khan has made that have been very beneficial for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think this guy's only continued to make great moves, some great deals. And, the Pittsburgh Steelers have announced that they have re-signed him through the 2028 season. They signed him to a 3-year deal. And this is pretty surprising, because Steelers have still not even signed their best player on their roster in TJ Watt, who's demanding a lot of money. TJ's looking to get around $40 to $42 million, maybe even more, but he does want to become the next highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL after Myles Garrett did get his superstar deal this offseason. So, Omar Khan does get his deal done before TJ, and it really brings up a lot of questions whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers will attempt to trade TJ Watt or just let him roll and, let him play out his last year on his contract because, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not made of money. They're not a big market team like the New York Giants who, just continue to blow money and waste their money on dumb talent, or the Dallas Cowboys who continue to do the same, just spend a ton of money, but, never really get a good free agent that is really worth it. Another team that's very notorious for doing dumb moves like that is, the Miami Dolphins. They always seem to bring in a lot of free agents, and most of them don't work out. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are not made of money. They really do not have that much money to be spending on one guy. We look at the latest trade the Pittsburgh Steelers did make, sending Minkah Fitzpatrick to Miami. They sent a guy that was beloved by fans, beloved by, even Steelers players, Steelers coaches, because they wanted to prove a point that, nobody's bigger than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody's worth, all the $1 million in the world, not just one player. It's a collective effort. It's a team sport. It's not, the TJ Watt football team. It's not the Minkah Fitzpatrick football team. And I think Omar Khan, Coach Tomlin and the Rudy family did send Minkah out of town to just prove a point that, we'll be willing to pay you, but you're not bigger than this team. This is a collective effort. And, if you don't pay or if you don't play up to that contract, we're not going to keep you. We did re-sign Minkah a few years ago to a big long-term deal, was paying him a ton of money. And obviously the last couple of years, he is not making enough splash plays. Only had one interception since getting signed to his deal. And, this guy's been hurt a majority of the past couple seasons as well. So, although it does suck to lose a guy in Minkah Fitzpatrick, it just builds the culture in Pittsburgh to show that, nobody's bigger than this football team. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's not the George Pickens show. It's not the Minkah Fitzpatrick show. And, we're not going to bow down to any player. So I'm very happy. I do think it was a good move to re-sign a guy like Omar Khan. Like I said, he's made a lot of cool moves since coming into Pittsburgh. He did earn the nickname the Con Artist by Pat McAfee and all them boys. So, I think this guy is only going to continue to keep making moves. If we even look at this year's draft, we get a guy in Derek Harmon, a much needed piece on the defensive line in the first round. In our second round, we pick up, we get DK Metcalf, another guy that Omar Khan sent a pick over to get. So, first round, we get Derek Harmon. Second round, we get DK Metcalf. Third round, we get a running back in Caleb Johnson, a guy that I think is going to contribute his rookie year and continue to contribute as he, has his career in Pittsburgh. Caleb Johnson's a combination of all the different running backs we had in the past couple years. He runs like Najee Harris, Le'Veon Bell, even a little bit of Rashard Mendenhall in there, even though Rashard Mendenhall wasn't too great at the end of his career. But, Caleb Johnson's really a collective of all those different guys. I think he's got a lot of talent. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball downfield. And, he can really do it all. But, we also get a guy later on in the draft in Jack Sawyer, and another guy in Will Howard, who I think has really got a chance to maybe become our franchise starter in the next couple of years if he does learn from guys like Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. So, Omar Khan has made a lot of great moves since coming into Pittsburgh, and I think he's only going to continue to make great moves. I think we're heading in a direction where we may have to rebuild in the next couple years. A lot of people are continuing to count us out, as they always do, continuing to list us as the worst team in our division. But as you know, we will prove them wrong, and, we will continue to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, still continue to be the consistent football team that we are. But hopefully we can finally get over this hump of that wild card playoff game and, finally get some wins in the playoffs, and maybe even get back to an AFC championship game. Maybe even back to a Super Bowl. With the addition of a guy like Aaron Rodgers, with the addition of a guy like DK Metcalf, and, bringing in defensive stars like Jalen Ramsey and Derek Harmon and some of those other guys we did get on defense this offseason. I really think the Pittsburgh Steelers are really gearing up to have a great chance to actually, compete this year and actually show that we're not a joke. We're still one of the top teams in the AFC North, as we always are. Every year the critics want to say, no, Pittsburgh's going to finish last in the division. And every year, what do? We either finish first or second, and we always seem to make the playoffs or at least go positive. So, like I said, Omar Khan, this guy's going to only continue to keep making great moves in Pittsburgh. And, I think he's going to be a real big contributing factor as we do continue to look to rebuild and reload in these next couple years. Unfortunately, that's all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys aren't already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers.